Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I want to talk to you about how to have better conversations. This video was inspired by one, my friend Dexter, shout out Dexter, two, the book How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Now, because I have this YouTube channel, it might seem like I'm outgoing, I'm gregarious, I can be at times, but I can also be incredibly socially awkward. And these types of books have helped me a ton thinking about how to have better conversations. How can I get along better with people? When I talk about these things, I don't want to throw these out there in terms of you have to be agreeable all the time. I'm not saying you need to be a pushover. For me, that's been a learning experience. That's what I want to share with you. How can you still stay true to yourself, true to your ideals, have interesting, have intriguing conversations with people, and stay true to you at the same time? So I want to share with you 5 different concepts that I've stolen from that book. I've keyfied them over my time with some little brief stories here and there so you can take these conversations. I'll have the different questions timestamped up below, so if you want to check that out, without further ado, let's jump into number 1. So number 1, this one is the key, but there's a nuance to it. How to Win Friends and Influence People, he talks a lot about how we get so self-centered, but it's not about what you necessarily say, it's how you make people feel. When people leave a party, they may not say, oh wow, I loved hanging out with Kia because we talked about New Zealand and hanging out. It was like, oh wow, yeah, so-and-so, they were a great guy, or man, that was a rad gal, we really had a good time. Most of the time though, people can't actually remember what the conversations were about. It's how do you make somebody feel? And because we are self-centered, we are the most important thing in our universe. I hate to break it to you, we're selfish beings. Sometimes go overboard with the questions. If you've been around me, if you're one of my friends, you've seen this happen. I become a podcast interviewer, and that doesn't always go over great. People say, wow, Kia, that's intrusive. Like, chill, slow your boat. And that to me, I think, is the nuance. How can you balance the push and pull between being genuinely interested, asking questions about the other person, and then also taking time to share genuinely, honestly, some of your experience if you see an opportunity to align with that. And I'm not saying you have to hijack their story where you've had this happen too, where someone goes, oh wow, you went to Thailand, I went to Thailand too. And then they go off on their own story like, yeah, I was trying to talk about me, right? So I'm kind of talking about you, I'm tying it back to me, and then we're going back to you, rather than you telling me something, me taking the story and hijacking it for myself. So make it about them, don't go overboard and make it an interview, especially on dates, people. I am so guilty of this. This video is just for me on dates. Don't make it a date review. Give a little, share about yourself, share honestly, but also be understanding if you're really starting to hog the conversation. Try to get back to the other person as much as you can. 2, we talked about this a little bit before. This kind of piggybacks off of number 1. I want to make a big caveat right here where it says, especially if they're a person of color, do not try to talk to them like you think you're supposed to, like a person of color. And so this is something that I feel we've all seen with the movie Get Out. It's a white guy comes up to a black guy and he's like, oh, I voted for Obama, right? Like in that movie, not cool. Still play to yourself, play to what's true to you. But here's the key, this is the difference here. If they talk about something, play in their domain. For this example, if you're really into hip hop, you can talk about hip hop too. I'm not saying you have to shield things that you aren't into, but for me, I think there's something powerful about talking to someone and having some knowledge about whatever it is that they're interested in, having that conversation without trying to seem like you're trying to win them over. You know what I mean? Like, you want to still be true to yourself, but if they happen to love travel or like to cook, it doesn't matter what it is. If you see an entry point, something that you want to talk about, you can talk about, that is awesome. Another big one, I love this one, give appreciation, give compliments, but don't do it in that fake LA way. Like, oh my God, I love your dress. Not cool. Don't do that. Let me not tell you what you should or shouldn't do. In my experience, what I've found is genuine compliments. If somebody has cool earring, cool hair, if they know some of their work, there's something about giving someone a sincere compliment and truly meaning it, not giving one to get one, that people can feel. The key to this whole thing, how do you make people feel special? When we receive compliments, it makes us feel good, especially if they're genuine. And as humans, we can sniff out when they're not. And that, to me, I think, is a real key piece to this. Playing off of compliments and people being the center of their own universe, use their name. Not impossible. For me, obviously, this is a hard one because this thing's mostly filled with Drake albums, but when I can, I try to come up with a little rap in my mind with their name. Not even a rap, but a little rhyme. And so I'll come up with like a rhyme or some sort of association. So when I see that person, maybe their name's Bruce, and then I'll think of like spruce or truce or something. And so I'll think of like a tree in my mind. When I see that guy, I'll be like, spruce, tree, Bruce, you know? And so there's something about making those associations that your brain can keep, and also using their name in conversation. So I'll say that a lot. I'll be like, oh wow, I'll be like, Bruce, I never thought about things like that. Or Bruce, you are the man. You are the man, right? There's something special. We love to hear our own name. The key with this whole thing is there's a nuance, right? Don't go overboard with it, but use their name. If it feels like it's natural in the conversation, be intentional. It'll also help you remember their name as well. The second to last tip I want to give you is don't argue unnecessarily or correct people. I'm going to talk about this in the last point about arguing, but we often want to correct people. I studied abroad when I was in my early 20s to New Zealand. And I came home and I was at a party, I saw a friend or something, asked me, Kia, how's Australia? Now I have two options here. I can say, I wasn't in Australia. What are you talking about? I was in New Zealand. And that goes, ooh, not a great feeling for the person asking the question. Or I could say, oh my, I can't believe you remembered. And New Zealand was crazy. I saw some sheep and I did this. And in their mind, they might go, oh, I was in New Zealand. Or they may say, oh, I'm sorry, New Zealand. It's kind of a way that you can, get around correcting them, or correct them in a good way. You might say, I actually never even made it to Australia. I really wanted to. I actually studied abroad in New Zealand, but it was incredible. Rather than doing it in this bitey way that I don't even know if that's the right way to say it, but you know what I'm talking about, when it has an edge, when it makes you like, oh, like feel like you like overstepped your bounds, or like, whoa, it's not a great feeling. You're like, ooh, like I'm not comfortable anymore with this person. But it's inherently in our nature to want to correct people. So this is one that for me, I think about a lot. How can I kind of slide in there with some sort of a gentle correction if it's necessary, or if it's not necessary, don't even talk about it because they want to talk about them again. So you could honestly just say, screw it. You know what? I'm not even gonna correct them. I'm just gonna say, oh my gosh, it was great. But you know what? I saw on Instagram, you went to Italy this summer. If they don't really care, you can tell. You can just take their little incorrect statement, you can piggyback off it, bow, and then go back to them on whatever the topic was. And 9 times out of 10, people don't actually give a fuck. So I just kind of roll with it, say, hey, it was great, and then go to something else. So think about corrections next time. Is it absolutely necessary? And if it is, how can you do it in a way that isn't unfortunately prickly? Now this last one, so if you've read any of the Dale Carnegie stuff, how to get along with people, win friends, blah, 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 this is a key twist on one of these ideas. I love this one because I feel like I can still be true to myself. I once went on a date with a girl and she told me that her favorite movie was Ice Age 2. And that's going to be a difficult point for me to agree on with you because that's just simply untrue. That said, I thought that was fascinating. It wasn't the first one, it wasn't the original. It was the middle Ice Age, which oftentimes Lord of the Rings, Twin Towers, but oftentimes those middling movies are just there because the first one was successful, so they're piggybacking off of it. So this is where I think this gem comes in. I love pushing back a little bit on an idea if I don't agree with it in a way that can further the conversation in a fun way. And I think that's the key here. If someone might have different political beliefs, religious beliefs, when you travel around, right now in India, things are very religious. There are surely people that believe very different things than I do. But the point for me isn't necessarily to say, I'm right, you're wrong, whatever, but try to impose my beliefs if I disagree. One key gem for you is to actually voice that you're disagreeing. You can kind of take whatever it is that they said, you're doing it in a playful way. That's fascinating. I want to actually push back on that a little bit. And then you tell them you're disagreeing, and then you set them up with a question. So that way it lessens the blow, and then you're able to serve it back to them, so that way it's less mansplaining. But to me, I found this has been a huge gem, a way that I can still say, that is fascinating, I actually can't believe it. Let me challenge you a little bit. And by saying that explicitly, it's almost like you've created this sort of a game out of it rather than it feeling quite so personal. So that's Kia's little gem, something I've been toying with lately. If it's something very potent, sex, politics, religion, I tend not to disagree, period, on those unless I know the person really well. But if it's with a stranger, here's bonus tip. If it's a stranger, don't argue with them, because unless it's in a playful way, there's no need to do that, especially if you're in a foreign land. So for me, that's a little quick bonus tip. If we know each other well, I'll absolutely disagree. if we don't, sex, politics, religion, you believe what you want to believe, I'll believe what I want to believe, and we can just keep it rocking and rolling. Let's find something else to talk about. So I hope that was helpful, a little way that you other socially awkward folks out there from across the internet can, put a little bit of a X factor in your conversations, hopefully make some new friends. If you do, let me know what their names are. Comment below, like, subscribe, smash all the buttons. Thank you so much for tuning in as always, and I'll check you on the next one. Peace.